Hello and welcome to Lost Love Chronicles.
Damon Spencer stood frozen at the entrance of Bellini's, one of Philadelphia's most exclusive restaurants. The lavish private dining room was adorned with cream and gold balloons, and champagne flowed freely as laughter and chatter filled the air. Every member of Valerie's family was there. Her father, Nolan Rhodes, a federal judge with political aspirations. Her mother, Marilyn, known for her philanthropic work. Her brothers, Pierce and Derek, and even distant relatives he hadn't seen since their wedding 5 years ago. Everyone, except him, had been in on this. A banner hung across the back wall, and Damon's stomach twisted as he read it. "Congratulations to our daughter's true love." His gaze swept over the crowd until it landed on Valerie, breathtaking in a blue dress he didn't recognize. She stood far too close to Blake Wade, her high school sweetheart, freshly returned to town after making his fortune in tech. Blake's arm was draped possessively around her waist, his fingers idly playing with the fabric of her dress. Nolan Rhodes raised his glass, commanding silence from the room. "When Valerie first brought Damon home, I accepted him because she seemed happy, but I always knew she could do better." The room erupted into laughter. "And now, we finally have a son-in-law worth celebrating." Damon felt the sting of their smirks and the weight of their cold stares. 5 years of marriage, years spent busting his ass to gain the Rhodes' approval, swallowing their thinly veiled disdain, only to be blindsided like this. A server approached him quietly. "Sir, would you like something to drink?" "Water," Damon rasped, his throat dry. Instead of water, the server handed him a folded note, discreetly slipping it into his hand. "From Mr. Dominguez." Damon unfolded the note, reading the elegant handwriting. "Mr. Spencer, please meet me in my office immediately. Back hallway, last door on the left. Your wife and the Rhodes have been holding meetings here for the past 6 months. Everything has been recorded. You need to see this now. Antonio Dominguez." Damon pocketed the note, his heart racing. As he maneuvered through the crowd, Valerie's eyes caught his, and her smile faltered for a moment, guilt flickering across her face before she quickly masked it with a practiced grin. "Damon, you're early," she said, stepping out of Blake's embrace and brushing a kiss across his cheek. "We were just about to call you over." "Were you?" Damon murmured. "Of course." She kept smiling, though her eyes stayed distant. "This dinner is to celebrate Blake's investment in Daddy's campaign. You know how important the Senate run is to the family." Damon stared at her. The fake warmth, the polished excuses, the banner, the toast, none of it added up. "Oh, that?" Valerie laughed, waving off the banner. "Just Daddy being dramatic, you know how he is after a few glasses of champagne." Nolan strode over and clapped Damon hard on the shoulder. "The other son-in-law arrives," he boomed. "Glad you could make it, even if you weren't exactly involved in the planning phase." More laughter followed. Damon nodded politely. "If you'll excuse me, I need to use the restroom." He made his way down the back hallway and found the door marked with a brass plate reading Dominguez. He knocked once before entering. Antonio Dominguez sat behind a mahogany desk, his expression somber. In his 60s, the restaurant owner had silver hair and a face that spoke of a lifetime of experience. "Mr. Spencer," Antonio rose to shake his hand. "I apologize for the interruption, but I believe a man should know when he's being deceived." Damon's suspicion deepened. "What's this about?" he asked, though he already had a sinking feeling. Antonio gestured to a computer monitor. "Your wife and Mr. Wade have been meeting here every Friday for months. Judge Rhodes arranged a private room for them, supposedly for campaign planning." Antonio hit play, and the screen flickered to life, showing Valerie and Blake locked in a passionate embrace. The footage shifted to scenes of the Rhodes family discussing Damon. "How much longer until Valerie leaves him?" Nolan Rhodes asked in one clip. "As soon as the divorce is finalized," Blake replied. "We've already moved most of the assets. Damon won't even know what hit him." "Good. He was never right for this family." The final clip was from just 3 days ago. Valerie assured Blake, "The prenup protects everything. Damon signed away his rights to contest anything. By the time I serve him papers next month, the family trust will be completely safe." "And his restaurant?" Blake asked. Nolan laughed. "The health inspector visiting next week is an old friend. One failed inspection, and Spencer's grill is done. Damon will be ruined professionally and financially." Antonio stopped the video. "I don't involve myself in my patrons' affairs, Mr. Spencer, but my father built this restaurant on principles. What they're planning is wrong." Damon sat in stunned silence, trying to process the magnitude of the betrayal. It wasn't just the affair, it was the cold, calculated plan to destroy everything he'd worked for. "Why show me this?" Damon finally asked. Antonio's eyes grew steely. "Judge Rhodes threatened to have my permits revoked last year when I refused to host a fundraiser for him. My daughter nearly lost her scholarship when she dated a boy the judge didn't approve of. The roads destroy anyone who doesn't bend to their will. Damon nodded slowly, his shock beginning to shift towards something darker. Thank you, Mr. Dominguez. I won't forget this. Antonio's gaze sharpened. What will you do? Damon stood, straightening his tie. First, I'm going to have dinner with my wife's family. Then I'm going to make my own plans. As Damon turned to leave, Antonio called after him. Mr. Spencer, my cousin is the health inspector they mentioned. I'd be happy to make a call. Damon gave a small smile. I'd appreciate that. And please, call me Damon. He returned to the dining room and took his seat beside Valerie, who immediately noticed the change in his demeanor. Everything okay? She asked nervously. Damon smiled, raising his glass. Never better. Let's celebrate. The next week, Damon moved through a haze of controlled fury, carefully hiding his knowledge while he gathered more information. He hired private investigator Tessa Alvarez, a former prosecutor who specialized in exposing corrupt officials. Judge Rhodes has enemies, Tessa explained in Damon's office above Spencer's grill. People who've been waiting for a chance to take him down. Damon's restaurant had become his sanctuary. The industrial kitchen and rustic dining room were the only places the Rhodes family rarely visited. They represented everything Damon had built from the ground up after leaving the Special Forces and using his savings to create something of his own. I need to know everything, Damon told Tessa. Their finances, their secrets, their plans. Tessa nodded. This won't be cheap. Money isn't an issue, Damon replied, sliding a check across the desk. He had been preparing for emergencies, and this felt like one. While Tessa worked, Damon stuck to his daily routine. He cooked breakfast for Valerie each morning, kissed her goodbye, and pretended not to notice the longer hours she was putting in at work or the unfamiliar cologne that sometimes lingered on her clothes. At night, he searched their home while she slept, finding divorce papers hidden in her home office, already signed and dated for the following month. Another document outlined a plan to transfer ownership of Spencer's Grill to Blake Wade's holding company after an expected health inspection failure. 3 days after hiring Tessa, Damon met with Antonio Dominguez again, this time at Spencer's Grill, after closing hours. The health inspection has been postponed indefinitely, Antonio said. My cousin sends his regards. Thank you, Damon replied, pouring them both a whiskey. Have you heard anything else? Antonio nodded. Judge Rhodes is planning something big with his Senate run. He's been meeting with some unsavory people, getting packages late at night. Damon raised an eyebrow. Political corruption? Worse. The men I've seen, they're not politicians or donors. They're the kind of people my father would have barred from our restaurant. This aligned with what Tessa had uncovered. Judge Nolan Rhodes presented a public image of law and order, but his connections ran deep in Philadelphia's criminal underworld. I need access to your security footage, Damon said. All of it. Antonio hesitated only briefly before nodding. I'll have copies delivered tomorrow. The following morning, Tessa arrived at Spencer's Grill with a thick file. Damon locked the office door before she laid out the documents on his desk. Judge Rhodes has been laundering money through his campaign, Tessa explained. Millions flowing through shell companies, offshore accounts, and properties purchased through intermediaries. Damon studied the financial statements, showing regular transfers. And Blake Wade? That's where it gets interesting, Tessa said, pulling out several photographs. Wade isn't just Valerie's lover, he's been working with her father for years. His tech company? It's mostly a front for moving the judge's illegal money. The photos showed Blake meeting with known criminals, handling unmarked packages, and even one where he had a gun tucked into his waistband. What about Valerie? Damon asked, keeping his voice steady. How involved is she? Tessa's expression softened slightly. Fully aware and participating. She manages several of the shell companies, signs the paperwork, attends the meetings. She hesitated. I'm sorry, Damon. Damon absorbed the information, feeling something hardening inside him. He had hoped, despite everything, that Valerie had been manipulated by her father and Blake. The confirmation of her active participation hit harder than he expected. There's more, Tessa continued. Judge Rhodes is planning something major. He's been meeting with members of the Sagenov family. Damon stiffened. The Sagenovs controlled much of the city's drug trade, operating with near impunity thanks to their connections in law enforcement. A judge working with drug traffickers? Damon shook his head. Career suicide if exposed. Tessa nodded. But that's not all. Do you remember Anthony Reyes? Damon did. Reyes had been a whistleblower in a corruption case. 2 years ago, Anthony Reyes was set to testify against several city officials, but he disappeared just days before the trial. The case collapsed. Reyes was last seen entering Judge Rhodes' hunting cabin upstate and never came out. Tessa slid a satellite image of the remote property across the desk. The case was assigned to Detective Miles Gardner, she said. Let me guess, one of Rhodes' people? Damon asked. Tessa nodded. The investigation was closed within a week due to insufficient evidence. Damon leaned back, his mind working through the implications. The Rhodes weren't just planning to divorce him and take his business. They were dangerous criminals, willing to eliminate anyone who posed a threat. If he confronted them head-on, he could end up like Anthony Reyes. One more thing, Tessa added, pulling out her phone. I recorded this yesterday at Bellini's. Your wife and Wade in the private dining room. The video played, showing Valerie and Blake discussing their plans for the future. Once Damon's out of the picture, how soon can we make it official? Blake asked, his hand resting on Valerie's thigh. Daddy says we need to wait at least 6 months after the divorce for appearances, Valerie replied. But honestly, who cares? Damon was always just a placeholder until you came back. The pathetic thing is, he still thinks I love him. Blake laughed. Poor scumsucker, actually works for a living. No wonder your father can't stand him. Damon was a mistake. Valerie agreed. But a useful one. Taking over his restaurant will give us another laundering point, and he'll be too broken to fight back. Damon watched silently, a cold, calculating feeling settling in his chest. The woman in the video was a stranger wearing his wife's face. I've seen enough, he said, stopping the video. What kind of evidence would the FBI need to move against Judge Rode? Tessa looked surprised. You're thinking of going to the authorities? That's dangerous, Damon. These people have connections everywhere. I'm not going to the authorities, Damon clarified. Not yet. I'm asking what evidence would be required to ensure a conviction when the time comes. Tessa studied him, realizing his intent. Financial records, proof of meetings with known criminals, evidence linking him to Anthony Reyes's disappearance. Witness testimony would help, but that's difficult given what happened to Reyes. Damon nodded. I need time. Can you continue the investigation? Focus on the hunting cabin, the Saginaw connection, and anything involving Blake Wade's companies. I can, Tessa replied, but her voice was laced with concern. Damon, what are you planning? Damon's expression remained unreadable as he gathered the documents. I'm going to give the Rhodes exactly what they want, and then I'm going to take everything from them. That evening, Valerie came home late, smelling of expensive cologne and wine. Damon greeted her with a kiss and dinner, playing the role of the oblivious husband. How was your day? He asked, serving her favorite pasta dish. Exhausting, she sighed. Daddy's campaign is demanding so much time. I understand, Damon said, refilling her wine glass. Family comes first. Valerie looked relieved at his acceptance. Thank you for being so supportive. Not all husbands would be. Damon smiled. Not all husbands love their wives the way I love you. Valerie's brief flash of guilt was almost imperceptible, but Damon caught it. 5 years of marriage had taught him to read her like a book. Is something bothering you? Valerie asked, noticing his intense gaze. Just thinking about the future, Damon replied honestly. And how quickly things can change. Damon Spencer hadn't always been a restaurateur. Before meeting Valerie Rode, he had served 8 years in military special operations, specializing in intelligence and psychological warfare. Those skills had remained dormant throughout his marriage, buried beneath his efforts to be the husband Valerie wanted. Now, alone in his restaurant office after hours, Damon accessed a secure email account he hadn't used in years. He sent a simple message to an old commander, requesting assistance with priority level marked as personal. The reply came within hours. Assets available, parameters. Damon outlined his needs: surveillance equipment, secure communication channels, and contacts who could operate discreetly in financial and legal circles. By morning, he had confirmation that help was on the way. 2 days later, his former teammate, Kyle Morrison, showed up at Spencer's Grill, posing as a new hire in the kitchen. In reality, Kyle brought military-grade surveillance equipment and the expertise to use it. You look soft, Spencer, Kyle remarked as they set up monitoring devices in Damon's office. Civilian life treating you well? It has its moments, Damon replied, testing a miniature camera. Kyle studied him. This isn't just about a cheating wife, is it? The Rhodes family, I looked them up. The judge is connected. Dangerous. Yes, Damon replied, his gaze hardening. And you're sure about this? Once we start, there's no going back to normal life. Damon's expression turned steely. There's no normal life to go back to. They've made sure of that. Kyle nodded, understanding. Then let's get to work. Over the next week, Damon's investigation expanded. Kyle bugged Blake Wade's car and office. Tessa continued tracking financial transactions. Antonio Dominguez provided access to his restaurant's secure rooms, where the Rhodes held their meetings. Damon, meanwhile, kept up the appearance of a perfect husband, even suggesting a weekend getaway. That sounds wonderful, Valerie said, genuinely pleased. What were you thinking? Your father mentioned that hunting cabin of his, Damon suggested casually. It's peaceful there this time of year. Valerie's smile faltered slightly. Oh, that old place? It's so remote and rustic. Wouldn't you prefer a luxury hotel somewhere? Actually, I've been thinking about getting more into nature, Damon pressed. Your father's been promising to take me hunting for years. I'll talk to Daddy about it, Valerie said, clearly uncomfortable. But he's very particular about that property. Damon nodded, noting her reaction. No rush, just a thought. That night, after Valerie fell asleep, Damon received an encrypted message from Tessa. Located Reyes's vehicle submerged in a lake 3 miles from the cabin. Sending coordinates. The pieces were falling into place, but Damon needed more concrete proof to destroy the roads completely. The opportunity came unexpectedly. Valerie announced a weekend trip to New York with her mother for a charity event. It's last minute, I know, she apologized, but this could be huge for Daddy's campaign. Damon expressed appropriate disappointment, but internally, he was celebrating the opening. As soon as Valerie left, he contacted Kyle. We have 48 hours. Time to visit the cabin. Kyle arrived with a third man, Marvin Diaz, a forensic specialist who had worked with him overseas. This is highly illegal, Marvin warned, as they loaded equipment into Kyle's SUV. Breaking into a federal judge's property? The cabin's in his wife's name, Damon corrected. Technically, we're breaking into Marilyn Rhodes' property. Marvin rolled his eyes. Well, that makes it completely fine then. The 3-hour drive to the Poconos passed in focused silence. The cabin sat on 20 acres of wooded land, accessible only by a private road. Kyle parked a mile away, and they approached on foot, using thermal imaging to confirm the property was empty. The security system was sophisticated but not military-grade. Marvin bypassed it within 15 minutes, granting them access without triggering alarms. We've got 4 hours before the system automatically pings for verification, Marvin explained. After that, the security company will call the owner. The cabin's rustic exterior hid its luxurious interior, expensive furniture, a state-of-the-art entertainment system, and a fully stocked bar. Damon moved through the space systematically, photographing everything, while Kyle set up surveillance devices in key locations. Check this out, Marvin called from the study, examining the bookshelf, which had small scratches along one edge, classic signs of a hidden compartment. Together, they activated the mechanism, revealing a secret room behind the bookcase. Inside, they found a computer, file cabinets, and a safe. I need time with this, Marvin said, connecting equipment to the computer. While Marvin worked, Damon and Kyle continued searching the rest of the cabin. In the basement, Kyle noticed irregularities in the concrete floor sections that sounded different when tapped. This area's been recently poured, Kyle observed, tapping various sections. Damon examined the space and noted its position relative to the rest of the cabin. We need ground-penetrating radar. Can your equipment handle that? Damon asked. Kyle nodded grimly. I can, but if we find what I think we will, we'll be dealing with something beyond simple revenge, Damon. The radar confirmed their suspicions. Something large was buried beneath the concrete. They took detailed readings, but left the floor untouched, knowing disturbing it would alert the roads. Meanwhile, Marvin cracked the computer's security. You need to see this, he called. The files revealed explicit evidence of Judge Rhodes' criminal activities, ledgers of bribes, photos of meetings with organized crime figures, and video files. Damon opened one video and immediately regretted it. It showed Judge Rhodes and Blake Wade interrogating a man Damon recognized as Anthony Reyes, the whistleblower, bound to a chair in the very room where they now stood. This goes beyond corruption, Marvin murmured, his face pale. This is murder. Damon watched long enough to confirm Reyes's fate, then copied all the files to an encrypted drive. We have what we need. They restored the room to its original state and left with 2 hours to spare, ensuring they left no trace except for the hidden surveillance equipment. Back in Philadelphia, Damon reviewed the evidence with Tessa. This is enough to put Rhodes away for life, she confirmed. Multiple homicides, racketeering, corruption, obstruction of justice. And Blake Wade is involved in all of it. As is Pierce Rhodes, Damon added, the older brother. What about Valerie? Tessa asked cautiously. Damon played a video showing Valerie at the cabin, bringing food and drinks while Reyes was held captive in the next room. She wasn't directly involved in the violence, but it was clear she knew what was happening. She's complicit, Damon said quietly. They all are. Tessa studied him carefully. So what's the plan? FBI? Justice Department? Not yet, Damon replied. The roads have people everywhere. If we move too soon, evidence will disappear, witnesses will recant or vanish, and nothing will stick. We need to be smarter. Damon outlined his strategy. Continue gathering evidence while appearing oblivious, wait for the roads to make their move against him, and then strike when they were most vulnerable. The Senate announcement is in 3 weeks, Damon explained. Nolan Rhodes will be at the height of his public exposure. That's when we hit them all at once from multiple angles, with irrefutable evidence. That's risky, Tessa cautioned. They're planning to destroy you before then. Let them try, Damon said coldly. Everything they think they know about me is a lie. It's time they learned who they're really dealing with. That night, alone in his restaurant kitchen, Damon prepared a complex dish, a habit that helped him think methodically, reducing the sauce as his mind churned over the plan. Damon's phone buzzed with a message from Kyle. Movement at the cabin. Judge and BW arrived 20 minutes ago. The monitoring devices they had planted were transmitting. Damon connected his phone to a speaker and listened as Nolan Rhodes and Blake Wade discussed their plans. The health inspection is back on for Spencer's restaurant, Judge Rhodes said. My contact confirmed it. By this time next week, Damon will be facing closure and financial ruin. And then Valerie serves him the divorce papers. Blake responded, precisely. She's already moved most of their liquid assets. He'll be left with nothing but debt and a destroyed reputation. What if he fights back, contests the divorce? Blake asked. Judge Rhodes' laugh was cold. Let him try. No one challenges my family and wins, Blake. No one. Damon turned off the audio, his mind now set. The Rhodes had seriously underestimated him, seeing only what he had let them see, a hard-working restaurateur, trying to please his wife's family. They would soon learn that they had invited a wolf into their home, thinking it was a sheep. On Monday morning, Damon received the official notice. A health inspection was scheduled for Spencer's Grill on Wednesday at 10 a.m., just 2 days to prepare for an inspection designed to shut him down. He called his head chef, Miguel Santos, into his office. We're going to have company on Wednesday, Damon explained, showing him the notice. This won't be a normal inspection. Miguel, who had worked with Damon since the restaurant's opening, nodded grimly. They're coming to find problems, not ensure safety. Exactly, Damon replied. So let's make sure there's nothing for them to find. He handed Miguel a list. I need these upgrades done immediately. Spare no expense. Miguel whistled at the costs. Boss, this is over $20,000. Consider it an investment in our future, Damon said. And keep this quiet, just tell the staff we're upgrading. Damon's next call was to Kyle, who arrived with specialized equipment to sweep the restaurant for surveillance devices. They found 3, one in Damon's office, one in the main dining area, and one in the kitchen. Kyle, inspecting one of the devices, noted professional placement. Reason 2, Damon replied, his expression unreadable. Kyle nodded. Leave them. I want them to think their plan is working. While Kyle worked, Damon met with his lawyer, Sophia Bennett, a stern woman who had once sued Judge Rhodes and held a personal vendetta against him. These divorce papers are outrageous, Sophia said, reviewing the documents Damon had found in Valerie's office. She's claiming everything: the restaurant, your savings, even personal property you owned before the marriage. Can she get it? Damon asked. Not legitimately, no, but with her father's influence. Sophia trailed off, her meaning clear. I understand. I need you to prepare counterfilings, but don't submit anything yet. When Valerie serves me, I want to be ready to respond immediately. Sophia studied him carefully. You seem remarkably calm for someone about to lose everything. Damon gave a thin smile. Who says I'm going to lose? That evening, Damon invited Antonio Dominguez to Spencer's Grill for dinner. The older man looked worried. My sources say Judge Rhodes is making moves against you, Antonio said quietly. The health inspector is his personal friend, Herbert Mann. Nothing will pass his inspection. I'm counting on that, Damon replied, serving Antonio a perfect filet mignon. In fact, I'm going to make it easy for him to find violations. Antonio was confused. You want to fail the inspection? I want them to be confident they've won, Damon explained. When people believe they've already won, they get careless. Antonio nodded slowly. You're a surprising man, Mr. Spencer. What can I do to help? Continue allowing them to use your restaurant for meetings, Damon replied. I need their conversations recorded. And I need one more favor: your cousin Rico, the legitimate health inspector, can he perform an official inspection tomorrow before Grossman arrives? Of course, Antonio agreed, but added, what good will that do if Grossman is determined to shut you down? Damon's smile turned predatory. Documentation. Evidence of bad faith. When we need it. The next day, Rico Dominguez conducted a thorough inspection of Spencer's Grill, documenting its impeccable condition with photos and a signed report. Damon thanked him and immediately set Phase 2 into motion, subtly altering certain areas of the restaurant to create apparent violations that would be discovered the following day. Meanwhile, Kyle reported that the cabin surveillance had captured another unsettling conversation between Judge Rhodes and Blake Wade. The Sagina deal closes after my Senate announcement, Rhodes said. $20 million funneled through your tech companies, then offshore. The construction contracts for the waterfront development will be awarded within days. An hour cut? Blake asked. $5 million each, completely untraceable. But first, we clean house. Anyone who knows too much becomes a liability. Damon listened grimly. The Rhodes weren't just corrupt. They were planning something that would affect the entire city, involving one of Philadelphia's most notorious crime families. That night, Valerie returned home later than usual, tension visible in her movements. Damon greeted her with a glass of wine and calmly inquired about her day. "You seem stressed," he observed, massaging her shoulders. Valerie relaxed slightly under his touch. "Just campaign pressures. Daddy's announcement is so close, and everything needs to be perfect." "You've always managed your father's events beautifully," Damon reassured her. "This will be no different." Valerie turned to him, studying his face. "You've been different lately. More attentive. Have I been neglectful before?" Damon asked innocently. "No, it's just..." She hesitated. "You know I love you, right?" The lie came easily from her lips, and Damon marveled at how he had once believed in her devotion. Now, he saw the calculation in her eyes, the slight tension in her smile. "Of course," he replied, kissing her forehead. "And I love you. Nothing will ever change that." Later, after Valerie fell asleep, Damon contacted Tessa. "I need everything you have on Herbert Mann, the health inspector working for Road." By morning, Tessa's information arrived. Mann had received multiple payments from shell companies linked to Judge Road, owned a vacation property far beyond his official salary, and had conducted suspicious inspections targeting Road's political opponents. Damon forwarded the information to Sophia, instructing her to hold it in reserve. Wednesday arrived with Herbert Mann, a balding man with an officious manner and small, suspicious eyes. Damon greeted him warmly. "Mr. Grossman, welcome to Spencer's Grill. We're honored to have such a thorough inspection today." Grossman barely acknowledged him and began his examination with clear bias. Damon watched as the man ignored pristine areas, lingering over the subtle issues. Damon had created a broken tile in the corner, slightly misaligned refrigerator temperatures, minor labeling discrepancies. Miguel played his part perfectly, appearing nervous and making small mistakes under Grossman's scrutiny. By the end of the 3-hour inspection, Gmann's clipboard was filled with violations. "This is unacceptable," Gmann declared, clearly pleased with himself. "Significant health code violations require immediate closure, pending remediation." Damon adopted a devastated expression. "Closure? But we have reservations tonight, important clients." "Not my problem," Grossman smirked, producing official closure notices. "You can appeal, of course," Grossman said, "but the process will take weeks. I'll need your keys." Damon handed over his keys with feigned reluctance, watching as Grossman placed the closure notices on the front doors. As soon as Grossman left, Damon called an emergency staff meeting. "I know this looks bad," he reassured his concerned employees, "but I'm asking you to trust me. Everyone will be paid fully during our closure. This is temporary." After calming his staff, Damon met Kyle in the back alley. "Phase 1 is complete," Damon confirmed. "They'll think they've won the first battle." Kyle handed him surveillance photos of Blake Wade entering Valerie's office building that morning. "They're moving faster now. Your wife withdrew another $50,000 from your joint account today." Damon nodded. Perfect timing for Phase 2. That evening, Damon returned home to find Valerie waiting with a forced look of sympathy. "Damon, I heard about the restaurant. I'm so sorry. It's a disaster," she said. Damon let out a sigh, allowing genuine seeming distress to show. "All those violations. I don't understand how it happened." Valerie hugged him, her body stiff against his. "Maybe it's a sign, sweetheart. Maybe the restaurant was never meant to be your path." Damon pulled back, feigning confusion. "What do you mean?" "Well," Valerie began carefully, "you've put so much into that place. You've worked so many hours. Perhaps this is an opportunity to try something new. Daddy always said you'd be better suited for other pursuits." Damon's expression darkened. "Your father never believed in me." Valerie lied smoothly. "That's not true. He just wants what's best for both of us." Damon turned away, his shoulders slumping in apparent defeat. "I don't know what I'm going to do. The appeal process could take weeks, and our savings." Valerie hesitated before speaking. "About that, I've been meaning to talk to you about our finances." Damon looked up, feigning ignorance. "What about them?" "I made some investments recently, for our future," she said, avoiding his eyes. "Moved where?" Damon asked, his voice rising. "Valerie, we need that money now." "It's complicated," she countered, her tone hardening slightly. "Financial matters were never your strength." "I did what was necessary." Damon began pacing the room, displaying the anger and confusion she expected. "I need to think. I'm going out." "Where?" Valerie asked sharply. "Does it matter?" Damon snapped, grabbing his keys. "My restaurant is closed, our savings are gone, and I need air." He drove to a bar across town, where Tessa waited in a corner booth with fresh information. Grossman filed the official closure report, she confirmed. Judge Rhodes made 3 calls immediately after, including one to Blake Wade. "They're celebrating." Damon nodded, unsurprised. "And the other pieces?" "The banking documents you requested are ready." Marvin confirmed the evidence from the cabin is securely backed up in 3 locations. Damon's expression was cold and focused. Tomorrow, Valerie will likely serve me divorce papers. When she does, everything accelerates. Tessa looked concerned. Damon, these people have killed to protect themselves. Are you sure about this approach? Damon's gaze was unwavering. The Rhodes think they're hunters. They're about to find out they've been hunting the wrong prey. The next morning, the divorce papers arrived with breakfast. Valerie placed them beside Damon's coffee cup, her expression a practiced mix of regret and resolve. I didn't want it to come to this, she said, her voice steady but with an undertone of emotion. But with the restaurant failing and your recent mood swings, we've grown apart. Damon stared at the documents, then at his wife. 5 years of marriage, and you serve me papers over breakfast? I'm trying to be civilized, Valerie replied. My lawyer says this arrangement is more than fair. Damon skimmed the papers, noting the one-sided terms. Valerie would retain their home, investments, and receive alimony, despite her family's wealth. He would assume all the debts from the now-closed restaurant. Fair. Damon laughed bitterly. You're taking everything and leaving me with nothing. You signed the prenup, Valerie reminded him coldly. Besides, I'm being generous, considering your limitations. Damon's jaw tightened. Limitations? Let's be honest, Damon, Valerie continued. You never fit in my world. Daddy tried to help you. He offered you positions in his companies, connections that could have made you something. Instead, you insisted on that little restaurant, working with your hands like some. She hesitated, disdain evident in her voice. Common laborer. The mask had finally dropped, revealing the contempt she'd hidden during their marriage. I see, Damon said quietly. And Blake Wade fits better into your world. I suppose, Valerie flinched slightly. What does Blake have to do with this? Please, Damon scoffed. The true son-in-law celebration, the late nights, the cologne on your clothes. I'm not blind, Valerie. Valerie composed herself. Blake is a family friend who understands our world. Whatever you're implying is just your insecurity talking. And the money you've been moving from our accounts? That's just insecurity too. Valerie's eyes narrowed. I protected our assets while you drove your business into the ground. You should be grateful. Damon stood slowly. I'll have my lawyer review these papers. Don't bother fighting this, Valerie warned. Daddy has already spoken with Judge Hamilton. The divorce will proceed regardless. Damon gathered the papers without another word and left the house. In his car, he immediately called Sophia. She served the papers. She mentioned that her father has spoken with Judge Hamilton. Sophia's voice was grim. Hamilton is deep in Rhodes' pocket. We'll need to file for a different judge immediately. Do it, Damon instructed, and implement the financial countermeasures. His next call was to Kyle. It's time. Activate everything. While Damon appeared to be spiraling into defeat, he had been methodically preparing his counterattack. The first move came 3 hours later when Valerie received an urgent call from her bank. Mrs. Spencer, this is Charles Winthrop from First National Trust. There's been unusual activity on your accounts that requires immediate verification. Valerie arrived at the bank to find that not only were the joint accounts with Damon locked, but several of her personal accounts had been as well. This is ridiculous, she fumed at the bank manager. These are my accounts. Actually, Mrs. Spencer, the manager explained calmly, the accounts in question were flagged for potential fraud. Several large transfers over the past month triggered automatic security protocols. You authorized those transfers without your husband's knowledge or consent. According to our records, for joint accounts, that's problematic. Meanwhile, Damon met with Antonio Dominguez at a secure location to review the latest recordings from Bellini's restaurant. She served him this morning, Antonio said, showing him the footage. Valerie was telling her father and Blake. He looked pathetic, just broken. Did he cry? Judge Rhodes laughed. Spencer always struck me as the crying type, Valerie replied. The best part, she continued, is that he has no idea about the restaurant sale. Everything is proceeding as planned. Blake confirmed, my company acquires Spencer's Grill at the bankruptcy auction. We renovate, reopen under a new name, and establish another clean channel for the Saginaw funds. Judge Rhodes' voice lowered. The Senate announcement is in 11 days. Once that's done, and the initial media scrutiny passes, we move the full amount $20 million through the restaurant, the construction contracts, and Wade's tech companies. And the other matter. Blake asked carefully, is it being handled? Henderson and Marks will both be removed from the equation before they can testify, came the response. Damon stopped the recording. Henderson and Marks? Who are they? Antonio looked grim. City inspectors who approved the waterfront development despite environmental concerns. Word is they've been cooperating with a federal investigation. Damon nodded. They're tying up loose ends before the senator's announcement. We need to accelerate our timeline. That afternoon, Sophia filed emergency motions contesting the divorce proceedings, specifically requesting the removal of Judge Hamilton due to a conflict of interest. Simultaneously, she submitted evidence of Valerie's financial misconduct, freezing additional assets pending investigation. Damon himself visited the office of Councilwoman Elaine Porter, a longtime political rival of Judge Rhodes. "These are serious allegations, Mr. Spencer," Porter said, reviewing the documents Damon provided. He'd carefully selected evidence of Rhodes' corruption, making sure not to reveal his full hand. "I know," Damon acknowledged, "and dangerous ones. Judge Rhodes has connections throughout the city, including in my office." "No doubt," Porter mused. "Why come to me?" "Because you've stood against him before," Damon said, "and your reputation for integrity is well earned." Damon paused. "And because the waterfront development he's orchestrating with the Sagan would destroy your district." Porter's eyes widened slightly. "You have proof of Rhodes' connection to the Sagan?" "Some," Damon admitted. "Not enough for criminal charges yet, but enough to delay the development contracts until a proper investigation can occur." Porter studied him for a moment. "Your wife is Rhodes' daughter. This could be interpreted as a bitter husband's revenge." "It could," Damon agreed. "But the evidence speaks for itself. Review it, verify it, then decide." As Damon left Councilwoman Porter's office, he received a call from Tessa. "We have a problem," she said without preamble. "Judge Rhodes just called in favors at the police department. There's a warrant being prepared for your arrest, alleged assault on Valerie." Damon absorbed this calmly. "She's claiming I hit her?" "According to my source, she visited the emergency room this morning with bruises." Dr. Landry signed the report. Damon noted, "Another Rhodes family friend." "How much time do I have?" "Hours, maybe less," Tessa replied. "This is serious. Domestic violence charges would destroy your credibility and give them leverage in the divorce." "It would," Damon agreed. "If I were anywhere they could find me." "Implement contingency plan B. I'm going dark for 48 hours. Damon's disappearance sent the Rhodes family into a frenzy. Police arrived at his home and restaurant with arrest warrants, but found neither Damon nor any trace of where he might have gone. Valerie, with professionally applied makeup to simulate bruises, gave tearful interviews about her abusive husband. Judge Rhodes publicly condemned Damon, promising that justice would be served against the violent coward. Meanwhile, Damon operated from a secure location, a waterfront warehouse owned by a shell company he had established years earlier as a contingency. Kyle and Tessa coordinated their activities through encrypted channels, implementing Damon's carefully constructed plan. First, Rico Dominguez filed a formal complaint against Herbert Grossman, providing evidence of the fabricated health violations at Spencer's Grill. This triggered an automatic review process, temporarily invalidating the restaurant's closure. Second, Marvin accessed the banking records Damon had quietly assembled, documenting Valerie's systematic theft from their joint accounts. These records were anonymously delivered to the Financial Crimes Division of the Philadelphia Police Department, a unit independent from Judge Rhodes' influence. Third, Sophia filed emergency injunctions preventing any sale or transfer of Spencer's Grill, citing evidence of conspiracy to defraud. By the second evening of Damon's disappearance, the Rhodes family was facing unexpected resistance on multiple fronts. Judge Rhodes called an emergency meeting at his home, unaware that Kyle had installed surveillance devices there as well. "This is unacceptable," Rhodes raged. "Where the hell is Spencer, and why are these legal challenges still moving forward?" "My contacts say Judge Hamilton may be recused from the divorce case," Pierce Rhodes reported. "Spencer's lawyer has filed compelling evidence of bias." "What evidence?" Valerie demanded. "Hamilton has been on our payroll for years," Rhodes said. "That's the problem." Blake interjected. "Someone provided banking records showing payments from our shell companies to Hamilton. Nothing definitive, but enough to raise questions." Rhodes' expression darkened. "What's happening with the restaurant?" "The closure has been temporarily lifted pending review," Blake admitted. "Some health inspector named Dominguez filed a complaint against Grossman, claiming professional misconduct." "Dominguez?" Rhodes stopped pacing. "Antonio Dominguez's cousin, the restaurant owner?" "I think so," Blake confirmed. Rhodes' expression darkened further. "Dominguez never liked me. Always thought he was too good to support my campaigns." "You think he's helping Spencer?" Valerie asked. "I think we've underestimated your husband," Rhodes said grimly. "These aren't random setbacks. This is coordinated resistance." Damon watched the surveillance feed with grim satisfaction. The Rhodes were starting to realize they were up against a formidable opponent, not the broken man they had expected. On the third morning, Damon implemented the next phase of his plan. Tessa delivered a comprehensive file to FBI Special Agent Marcus Ramos, containing evidence of Judge Rhodes' corruption, his connections to the Sagenow family, and documentation of the waterfront development scheme. "This is explosive material," Ramos noted as he reviewed the file. "But why anonymously?" Why not come forward as a witness? My client fears for his safety, Tessa explained. Judge Rhodes has already shown a willingness to eliminate threats. You're referring to Anthony Reyes? Ramos asked. Tessa nodded. My client has reason to believe Rhodes was involved in Reyes's disappearance. The evidence is circumstantial but compelling. Ramos studied her carefully. This wouldn't happen to involve Damon Spencer, would it? The restaurateur whose wife recently accused him of assault? Tessa maintained a neutral expression. I can neither confirm nor deny my client's identity. Convenient timing, Ramos observed. Rhodes' daughter accuses her husband of assault, and suddenly we receive evidence of Rhodes' corruption. The evidence stands on its own, Tessa countered. Investigate it or don't. That's your choice. But people's lives are at stake, including 2 city inspectors named Henderson and Marks. Ramos's expression shifted. What about them? They may be in danger, Tessa said. Rhodes considers them liabilities in the waterfront development project. After leaving the FBI office, Tessa contacted Damon. The package is delivered. Good, Damon replied. Is everything ready for tomorrow? Yes, Operation Prodigal Son is set. The following morning, Damon Spencer walked into Philadelphia Police Department headquarters and surrendered himself voluntarily. The media had been anonymously tipped off, ensuring cameras captured his arrival. Damon appeared calm and composed, dressed in an impeccable suit, not the look of a fugitive. Mr. Spencer, Detective Gardner sneered, the same detective who had prematurely closed the Anthony Reyes case. How kind of you to join us after evading arrest. I wasn't evading anything, Damon replied politely. I was gathering evidence. He nodded to Sophia, who placed a thick file on the detective's desk. Evidence that proves Valerie Rhodes Spencer fabricated her assault claims as part of a larger conspiracy orchestrated by Judge Nolan Road. Gardner glanced at the file without opening it. Save it for court. You're being charged with domestic assault and battery. No, Sophia interjected firmly. Not when you review the evidence, which includes security footage from the Spencer residence showing Mrs. Spencer applying fake bruises the morning she claimed to have been assaulted. She played a short video on her tablet, clearly showing Valerie carefully applying makeup to create the appearance of bruises. Gardner paled slightly. This could be doctored. The original footage has been verified by 2 independent forensic experts, Sophia replied. Their sworn affidavits are in the file, along with evidence that Dr. Landry, who signed the medical report, received a $50,000 payment from one of Judge Rhodes' shell companies the same day. The detective glanced toward the door, clearly uncomfortable. This doesn't change the fact that a warrant was issued. A warrant based on false testimony is invalid, Sophia countered. But by all means, arrest my client. The press conference we've scheduled for noon will be even more dramatic if he's in handcuffs. Gardner looked from Damon to Sophia, then at the waiting media outside. Wait here, he muttered, taking the file and leaving the room. Damon turned to Sophia. How long? 20 minutes before Gardner calls Rhodes, she replied. Another 20 before Rhodes realizes the implications. That gives us approximately an hour before they mount a counteroffensive. Damon nodded. Perfect. By then, Phase 4 will be active. Gardner returned 40 minutes later, visibly agitated. The charges are being reviewed, he announced reluctantly. You're free to go for now, Spencer, but don't leave town. Damon smiled pleasantly. I wouldn't dream of it, Detective. Philadelphia is my home. I intend to stay for a very long time. As they left the police station, reporters swarmed them. Damon appeared surprised by the attention, playing perfectly into the narrative of an innocent man wrongfully accused. Mr. Spencer, can you comment on your wife's allegations? One reporter asked. Damon projected dignified restraint. I can only say that the truth will emerge through proper legal channels. I have great faith in our justice system. Are you aware that Judge Rhodes has publicly called for your imprisonment? I have nothing but respect for Judge Rhodes' distinguished career, Damon replied diplomatically. I'm sure once all facts are established, this unfortunate situation will be resolved. His measured responses, contrasting sharply with the emotional accusations from the Rhodes, created exactly the public perception Damon had intended. By that evening, social media was buzzing with speculation about the case, with many questioning Valerie's claims. At precisely 3 p.m., Phase 4 activated when Councilwoman Porter held a press conference announcing a formal investigation into the waterfront development project, citing serious concerns about environmental impact and procedural irregularities. Judge Rhodes, scheduled to announce his Senate candidacy in just 8 days, now faced multiple unexpected challenges. His daughter's assault claims were being questioned, his signature development project was under investigation, and rumors of corruption were beginning to circulate. That night, Damon received confirmation from Kyle's surveillance that the Rhodes were panicking. This is a disaster, Judge Rhodes shouted. The Senate announcement is barely a week away, and suddenly we're facing scrutiny from all sides. Daddy, Calm down, Valerie urged. We still have leverage. The divorce proceedings are stalled because Hamilton was removed from the case. Rhodes interrupted, his frustration boiling over. Don't you understand? Someone is coordinating this. Each attack targets a different vulnerability, systematically dismantling our plans. It's Spencer. He must have help, Blake insisted. Obviously, Rhodes snapped. But who? And how much do they know? Silence fell as the implications settled over the room. What about our arrangement with the Sage-Nos? Pierce asked finally. If the waterfront project stalls, they won't be pleased, Rhodes acknowledged grimly. We need to contain this situation immediately, Rhodes ordered. Blake, contact Gardner and tell him to find anything to arrest Spencer on legitimate charges. Valerie, maintain your story about the assault. The public loves a victim. Pierce, reach out to our media contacts and start a smear campaign against Spencer criminal history, mental instability, whatever works. And as for the Sagans? Blake pressed, I'll handle them. Rhodes nodded. We'll accelerate the timeline. Move the money now before additional scrutiny makes it impossible. Damon forwarded the recording to Agent Ramos with a simple message. The transfer happens tonight, $20 million through accounts listed in the evidence packet. This is your chance to catch them in the act. By midnight, FBI agents were monitoring the banking activity of all parties involved. By 2 a.m., they had documented illegal transfers totaling $15 million. But before things could progress further, Judge Rhodes apparently sensed trouble and halted the operation. Damon's plan was unfolding perfectly. The Rhodes were reacting exactly as he had predicted, making desperate moves that only further incriminated them. 7 days before Judge Rhodes' Senate announcement, Damon received an unexpected visitor at Spencer's Grill, which had reopened following the invalidation of Grossman's inspection. Antonio Dominguez entered through the back door, looking anxious. They came to my restaurant, Antonio reported without preamble. Rhodes and Wade asking questions about you about whether I've been helping you. Damon maintained a calm demeanor. What did you tell them? That I barely know you beyond professional courtesy. Antonio shook his head. They didn't believe me. Rhodes threatened my business licenses, said health inspectors would find my kitchen problematic next week. They're getting desperate, Damon noted. Lashing out at perceived enemies, Antonio warned. Desperate is dangerous. My sources say Rhodes met with Calvin Sagan yesterday. Not as Lieutenant Sagan himself, Antonio continued. This was significant. Calvin Sagan rarely met personally with anyone outside his organization, preferring to operate through intermediaries to maintain deniability. What else? Damon pressed. They're looking for something, Antonio said. Rhodes keeps mentioning recordings and surveillance. He thinks someone's been monitoring him. Damon nodded thoughtfully. They're beginning to understand the scope of what they're facing. Damon, Antonio said, his tone serious. These people, they don't just threaten. The Sage-Nos have eliminated entire families who cross them. I know the risks, Damon assured him. But we're past the point of retreat. The next 48 hours are critical. After Antonio left, Damon contacted Kyle. Remove all surveillance equipment from the Rhodes properties immediately. They're actively searching for it. Already done, Kyle confirmed. But you should know they've hired private security for the judge's home and Valerie's apartment, professional contractors, likely former military. Expected, Damon replied. Implement countermeasures as planned. That afternoon, Sophia called with news from the divorce proceedings. The case has been reassigned to Judge Caroline Wilson. Damon raised an eyebrow. Wilson? She's known for her strict adherence to legal procedure. Exactly, Sophia said, sounding pleased. Rhodes can't influence her. She's reviewing our evidence of financial misconduct by Valerie and has frozen all contested assets pending resolution. How did the Rhodes react? Violently. Nolan Rhodes actually yelled at Wilson in her chambers. She threatened him with contempt. This was better than Damon had anticipated. Judge Rhodes' composure was cracking under pressure, making mistakes that only further undermined his position. That evening, national news broke a story that sent shockwaves through Philadelphia. FBI investigating prominent judge for corruption and organized crime ties. While Rhodes wasn't named in the initial reports, the details made his identity clear to informed observers. Damon watched the coverage from Spencer's Grill, where business had surprisingly increased following the publicity. Surrounding the false closure and Damon's subsequent vindication, the restaurant was full, with customers sending supportive comments and curious glances his way. Miguel approached his table. Boss, there's someone asking to see you. Says her name is Gloria Rhodes. Damon concealed his surprise. Valerie's mother, Gloria, had always been the most distant member of the Rhodes family. She maintained a careful public image while avoiding direct involvement in her husband's activities. Center of my office, Damon instructed. Gloria Rhodes entered cautiously, looking elegant but strained. Unlike her husband and daughter, Gloria had always treated Damon with basic courtesy, if not warmth. Damon, she said softly, accepting the seat he offered. Thank you for seeing me. Of course, he replied neutrally. What can I do for you, Gloria? She clasped her hands tightly. This situation is spiraling out of control. Nolan is not himself. Valerie is following his lead, as always. Damon waited in silence, saying nothing. I know my husband and daughter have treated you terribly, Gloria continued. The divorce, the false allegations, it's unconscionable. Yet you've said nothing publicly, Damon observed. Gloria flinched. I've spent 30 years looking the other way, Damon. It's what was expected of me. And now I'm afraid, she admitted. These rumors about Nolan's connections to the Sage Nose. Damon, do you know what that family is capable of? I have some idea, Damon replied evenly. Gloria leaned forward. Whatever you're doing, however you're fighting back, you need to stop for your own safety. Is that concern for me, Gloria, or fear that your family's crimes will be exposed? He asked. She pulled back slightly. Both, perhaps. Nolan believes you've orchestrated everything, the investigations, the media leaks, the legal challenges. He's coming for you, Damon. Not just through legal channels. Is that a threat? He asked. A warning, Gloria corrected. From someone who has watched Nolan destroy people before. She hesitated. Including Anthony Reyes. Damon's expression remained unchanged, but he noted the confirmation. What do you know about Reyes? Only that he disappeared after threatening to expose Nolan. I don't ask questions when people vanish from Nolan's life. Willful ignorance is still complicity, Gloria. She looked away. I know. I've told myself otherwise for decades, but I know. She stood to leave. I can't offer a deal. Nolan is prepared to drop everything, the divorce, the allegations, the attacks on your business, in exchange for you to cease whatever campaign you're waging against him. Damon studied her carefully. Did Nolan send you with this offer? Gloria hesitated for a fraction of a second. Yes. You're lying, Damon said calmly. Nolan Rhodes would never admit defeat by offering terms. He'd fight to destroy me regardless of the cost. Please, Damon, Gloria's composure cracked. If you have evidence against Nolan, use it to negotiate. Don't destroy my family completely the way he planned to destroy me. Damon countered, the way he's destroyed others. Why should I show mercy when none was intended for me? Because you're better than him, Gloria said simply. Better than all of us. Damon stood, indicating the meeting was over. Tell your husband that any deal must start with the truth about Anthony Reyes, about the Sagino connection, about everything. He'll never admit to that, Gloria said hopelessly. Then we have nothing to discuss. After Gloria left, Damon immediately contacted Kyle. The Rhodes just made contact through Gloria. They're desperate enough to offer terms. That's unexpected, Kyle noted. What are you thinking? That it's time for the final phase. Contact Tessa and Marvin. We move tonight. While Damon had been building his legal and public relations counteroffensive, Tessa and Marvin had been developing the most crucial element of his plan, irrefutable evidence. Evidence linking Judge Rhodes and Blake Wade to Anthony Reyes's murder was gathered from the hunting cabin. Ground-penetrating radar had detected something buried beneath the concrete floor. Working with a trusted forensic team, they extracted samples through discrete drill holes, confirming the presence of human remains. Using the cabin's security system, they compiled a detailed timeline showing Judge Rhodes, Blake Wade, and Pierce Rhodes transporting a heavy object wrapped in plastic from the cabin to the basement the night Reyes disappeared. This evidence, along with video footage of Reyes's interrogation and financial records detailing the subsequent cover-up, created an airtight case. At precisely 11 p.m., Tessa delivered the complete file to FBI agent Ramos, along with the location of Reyes's submerged vehicle. Simultaneously, Kyle sent select portions of the evidence to trusted journalists at 3 national news organizations. By midnight, FBI agents had secured Judge Rhodes' hunting cabin. By 2 a.m., they had obtained emergency warrants for the Rhodes family compound, Blake Wade's penthouse, and the offices of Wade Technology Ventures. Damon watched from his restaurant as the operation unfolded. Tessa provided regular updates. The Rhodes compound was secured, Judge Rhodes was in custody, then Wade was arrested at his home, and Pierce Rhodes was apprehended while attempting to board a private flight. Dawn brought news that shocked Philadelphia. Federal judge arrested, Nolan Rhodes facing murder charges, corruption. Tech CEO Blake Wade implicated in killing of whistleblower. Senate hopeful's criminal empire exposed. At 7 a.m., Damon received a call from an unfamiliar number. It was Valerie, using a borrowed phone. What have you done? She demanded, her voice raw with emotion. I haven't done anything, Damon replied calmly. Your father's crimes finally caught up with him. This is your revenge, Valerie accused. You orchestrated all of it. Your father murdered a man. Valerie, Blake helped him. They were planning to do the same to others. Did you expect me to ignore that? Damon asked. They're saying I was involved. Valerie's voice cracked. I didn't know they would kill him. I thought they were just going to scare him. But you knew he was being held against his will, Damon pointed out. You brought food while he was captive. Another long pause. How do you know that? I know everything, Valerie. Every meeting, every plan, every lie. Her voice turned pleading. Whatever they're offering, I can give you more money, property. I have accounts you don't know about. I don't want your money, Damon said coldly. I want justice. For what? A divorce? A failed restaurant? Valerie's desperation turned to anger. No, Valerie. I'm ensuring murderers and criminals face consequences. Your father and Blake killed a man. They planned to kill others. They were corrupting our city, using your family's influence to protect criminals like the Sage knows. You don't understand, Valerie insisted. Daddy was building something important. The Senate position would have given him even more power to abuse, Damon finished. I didn't see it before, Valerie. But I do now. They're coming for me next, she said, her voice small. Damon, please help me, for what we once had. Damon closed his eyes for a moment, remembering the woman he had once believed he married, before realizing it had all been a calculated lie. Goodbye, Valerie. He ended the call and turned to find Tessa watching him with concern. Are you all right? She asked. Damon nodded. It's almost over. What's the status on the financial recovery? Sophia's team has identified most of the hidden accounts with the RICO charges against Rhodes and Wade. Asset seizure is progressing, and you should recover everything they took, plus damages. Spencer's grill has been fully cleared of all allegations, with the health department issuing a formal apology this morning. Damon smiled faintly. Then we have one final task. That afternoon, Damon submitted the complete evidence package regarding Valerie's involvement in the Reyes case to the FBI. It included security footage from the cabin showing her knowledge of the captive, financial records documenting her role in the cover-up, and their recorded phone conversation from that morning. By evening, Valerie Rhodes Spencer had been arrested as an accessory to kidnapping and murder. As Damon watched the news coverage from his restaurant office, Antonio Dominguez entered with a bottle of aged scotch. To justice, Antonio toasted, pouring 2 glasses. Damon raised his glass. To truth. The Rhodes destroyed many lives, Antonio remarked. Not just Reyes, Damon agreed, and now they'll answer for it. Antonio studied him thoughtfully. May I ask you something? When did you start suspecting them? When did all this begin? Damon considered the question. I had doubts about Valerie's commitment to our marriage for some time, but I didn't grasp the full scope until that dinner at your restaurant, when her family celebrated her relationship with Blake while I watched from the doorway. The note I sent you changed everything, Damon acknowledged. It gave me the proof I'd only suspected. Antonio nodded thoughtfully. You know, I've owned Bellini's for 30 years. I've seen many powerful families come and go. The Rhodes were among the worst, entitled, cruel, believing they were above consequence. They weren't, Damon replied simply. No, Antonio agreed. Thanks to you. As Antonio left, Damon remained in his office, watching the city lights emerge as darkness fell. The Rhodes had seen him as weak, a hard-working restaurateur, trying desperately to please his wife's family, lacking the resources or cunning to fight back. When they moved against him, they failed to see the man beneath the mask, the strategic thinker, the patient planner, and the ruthless enforcer of justice. Their fatal mistake had been believing Damon Spencer was the man they had created in their minds, rather than the man he truly was. 6 months after the arrests, Philadelphia was still reeling from the revelations about the Rhodes family. The case had expanded far beyond Anthony Reyes's murder, uncovering decades of corruption, bribery, and criminal conspiracy. Damon Spencer had methodically rebuilt his life. Spencer's Grill was thriving and had expanded to a second location. The divorce from Valerie had been finalized, with all assets returned to Damon, plus substantial damages. His reputation, initially questioned, had been fully restored as the extent of the Rhodes family's crimes became public. The federal courthouse downtown was surrounded by media as the trial of Judge Nolan Rhodes entered its 5th week. Damon arrived early and took his usual seat at the back of the courtroom. As a key witness who had already testified, he wasn't required to attend every session, but he rarely missed one. Tessa slipped into the seat beside him. The prosecution is wrapping up today, she said. Closing arguments are expected tomorrow. Damon nodded. Any surprises expected? No. Rhodes' defense is collapsing. 3 more former associates turned state's evidence yesterday. The courtroom filled quickly. The trial had attracted national attention, rare for a federal judge facing charges of murder, racketeering, corruption, and conspiracy. Blake Wade and Pierce Rhodes had already pleaded guilty to reduced charges in exchange for testimony against Nolan. Valerie entered with her attorney, refusing to meet Damon's gaze as she passed. She had ultimately accepted a plea deal, agreeing to testify against her father and Blake in exchange for a reduced sentence of 10 years. Judge Nolan Rhodes was the last to enter, escorted by U.S. Marshals. Once commanding and imperious, he now appeared diminished in his orange jumpsuit, though his expression remained defiant. He scanned the courtroom, his eyes locking on Damon, the hatred in them unmistakable. The day's proceedings centered around forensic evidence from the cabin. The concrete floor had been removed, revealing Anthony Reyes's remains. DNA evidence, tool marks, and soil samples established an irrefutable timeline of the murder and the hasty burial. During a recess, Damon stepped outside for air. The autumn day was crisp, with leaves swirling across the courthouse steps. A familiar figure approached Gloria Road, who had filed for divorce from Nolan immediately after his arrest. Damon, she acknowledged quietly. Gloria, he replied with a nod. I didn't expect to see you here. I've attended every day, she said. Penance, perhaps. They stood in awkward silence until Gloria spoke again. The prosecution offered me immunity for my testimony. I know your statement was compelling, Damon said. I told the truth, Gloria replied simply. After decades of looking away, I finally told the truth. Damon studied her. Unlike Nolan and Valerie, Gloria seemed to show genuine remorse. What will you do after the trial? Leave Philadelphia. Start over somewhere no one knows the road's name? She hesitated. I want to apologize to you, Damon, for everything. You weren't behind any of it. Damon pointed out. No, but I saw how they treated you. I knew what Nolan and Valerie were planning with Blake, and I said nothing. Gloria looked away. Silence in the face of wrongdoing is its own kind of evil. Damon couldn't disagree. Take care of yourself, Gloria. As she turned to leave, she paused. May I ask you something? All those years pretending to be someone you weren't around our family, didn't it wear on you? I wasn't pretending, Damon corrected. I genuinely loved Valerie. I genuinely tried to earn your family's respect. That part was real. As she walked away, Gloria gave him a thoughtful glance. When court resumed, the prosecution called their final witness, Detective Miles Gardner, who was now facing charges himself for his role in covering up Reyes's murder. Gardner had accepted a plea deal in exchange for his testimony against Judge Road. Detective Gardner, the prosecutor began, please tell the court about your conversation with Judge Rhodes regarding Anthony Reyes's disappearance. Gardner cleared his throat nervously. Judge Rhodes called me directly the night Reyes went missing. He said there was a situation at his hunting cabin that needed to be handled discreetly. When I arrived, Reyes was already dead. And what did the defendant instruct you to do? To declare it a missing persons case and ensure the investigation went nowhere, Gardner continued. In exchange, he arranged for my promotion and a payment of $50,000. Gardner's testimony went on to describe in detail how Judge Rhodes had coordinated the cover-up, threatened potential witnesses, and used his judicial authority to bury evidence. Throughout the proceedings, Nolan Rhodes sat stone-faced, occasionally whispering to his attorney, but showing no remorse or reaction. As court adjourned for the day, Damon received a text from Kyle, package secured. Final piece in place. Damon smiled faintly. While the criminal trial was progressing, he had been quietly pursuing one last element of his plan. Damon had successfully located Judge Rhodes' hidden offshore accounts, which contained millions in bribes and criminal proceeds that federal authorities had yet to uncover. Using connections from their military days, Kyle had traced the funds to a bank in the Cayman Islands, bypassing security measures. However, the money wouldn't be returning to Rhodes or his family. Instead, Damon had arranged for every dollar to be donated to a foundation in honor of Anthony Reyes, supporting the families of whistleblowers and victims of judicial misconduct. The next morning, closing arguments began. The prosecution systematically laid out the case against Judge Nolan Rhodes. Physical evidence, the financial paper trail, the testimony of accomplices and witnesses. The defense focused on procedural issues and tried to discredit key witnesses, leaving them with few options. As the jury was dismissed to begin deliberations, Judge Rhodes finally approached Damon, as far as the marshals would allow. You think you've won? Rhodes said in a low, intense voice. You think this is over? Damon met his gaze calmly. Justice isn't about winning, Judge Rhodes. It's about truth. Truth? Rhodes scoffed. You manipulated evidence, coerced witnesses, orchestrated this entire persecution. I simply ensured your actions came to light, Damon countered. Everything else, the murder, the corruption, the betrayal, that was all you. Rhodes' eyes narrowed. I still have resources you can't imagine. Friends and places you'll never reach. This isn't over, Spencer. Damon stepped closer, speaking only for Rhodes to hear. Actually, it is. As we speak, your final $15 million in the Caymans is being transferred to the Anthony Reyes Foundation. There's nothing left. No hidden resources, no secret allies, no escape routes. You've lost everything, just as you planned for me. The color drained from Rhodes' face. You can't. That's impossible. Goodbye, Judge Rhodes, Damon said, turning and walking away, leaving the once powerful man stunned and speechless. The jury deliberated for just 7 hours before returning with a verdict, guilty on all counts. Judge Nolan Rhodes was sentenced to life imprisonment without the possibility of parole. As Rhodes was led away, his eyes found Damon one last time, not with hatred, but with something resembling fearful respect, finally understanding the man he had so fatally underestimated. Outside the courthouse, reporters swarmed Damon for comments. Mr. Spencer, how do you feel about the verdict? Damon considered the question for a moment. I feel that justice has been served. Not just for me, but for Anthony Reyes and all the others harmed by Judge Rhodes' actions. Will you be attending Valerie Rhodes' sentencing next week? No, Damon said simply. That chapter of my life is closed. Later that evening, Damon hosted a small gathering at Spencer's Grill, inviting Tessa, Kyle, Marvin, Antonio, Sophia, and the others who had helped expose the Rhodes family's crimes. They celebrated quietly, aware that their victory had come at great cost to Anthony Reyes. Damon raised a glass. May he rest in peace, knowing his killers faced justice. As the others raised their glasses, Tessa asked, What now, Damon? What's next for you? Damon looked around the restaurant. He had built the business the Rhodes had tried to take from him. This is enough. Running my restaurants. Living honestly, that's all I ever wanted. Kyle raised an eyebrow. Really? After everything you orchestrated? You were brilliant, man, strategic, relentless. That was necessity, not preference, Damon explained. I'm not interested in power or revenge for its own sake. I just make sure that those who harm others face consequences. His phone buzzed with a news alert. Rhodes family properties to be auctioned. Proceeds to victims fund. Damon smiled faintly. Another piece of the Rhodes empire was dismantled, transformed into something positive. Antonio raised his glass again. To Damon Spencer, a man who taught Philadelphia's most powerful family that actions have consequences. I'll drink to that, Kyle agreed. Damon accepted their toast with a nod, but his mind was already elsewhere. The Rhodes case had awakened something in him, not a thirst for vengeance, but a recognition of his ability to balance scales that the justice system sometimes couldn't reach. Perhaps there were other Nolan Rhodes in the world, other powerful individuals who believed themselves beyond accountability. Maybe Damon Spencer hadn't quite finished his work after all. 1 year after Judge Rhodes' conviction, Damon Spencer sat across from FBI agent Marcus Ramos in a quiet corner of Spencer's Grill. The restaurant had expanded to 3 locations across Philadelphia, each a success, each a testament to Damon's resilience. Congratulations on the promotion, Damon said, noting Ramos's new title, Special Agent in charge of the Philadelphia field office. Thank you, Ramos replied. The Rhodes case opened a lot of doors. Damon smiled. I imagine so. Bringing down a corrupt federal judge makes for a compelling career highlight. Which brings me to why I asked for this meeting. Ramos leaned forward. The investigation didn't end with the Rhodes. We've been pulling threads, following connections. And, Damon prompted, we've uncovered a network judges, prosecutors, police officials, all compromised in similar ways. Not just in Philadelphia, but across the eastern seaboard. Damon nodded thoughtfully. That's not surprising. Nolan Rhodes didn't corrupt the system alone. No, Ramos agreed. He was just one node in a much larger web. He hesitated. I've been reviewing everything from the Rhodes investigation, the evidence that appeared at exactly the right moments, the recordings, the financial trails. It was remarkably thorough. Good detective work, Damon suggested. Ramos smiled thinly. Beyond good. Almost orchestrated. Damon sipped his coffee, his expression neutral. What are you suggesting, Agent Ramos? Nothing officially. Ramos maintained eye contact. Unofficially, I believe we had help. Sophisticated help from someone with resources, skills, and motivation. Interesting theory, Damon replied. More than a theory. Ramos placed a small notebook on the table. Starting 3 months before Rhodes' arrest, unusual electronic intrusions were detected in certain secure systems. Nothing stolen, nothing damaged, just information accessed. Banking records, property deeds, sealed court documents. Damon raised an eyebrow. Sounds like you have a security problem. We had a vigilante problem, Ramos corrected. Someone working outside official channels, gathering evidence we couldn't legally obtain. And yet, you used this evidence to convict Rhodes once it came to us through legitimate channels. Yes, Ramos tapped the notebook. The question is, who had both the capability and motivation to execute such a complex operation? Damon spread his hands. I'm just a restaurant owner, Agent Ramos. Are you? Ramos challenged mildly. Your military record suggests otherwise. 8 years in special operations, commendations for intelligence work, psychological warfare expertise. Ancient history, Damon dismissed. I left that life behind when I met Valerie, Ramos said. Did you? Or did you just shove those skills aside until they became necessary? Damon's expression revealed nothing. What exactly do you want, Agent Ramos? Officially? Nothing. Rhodes is in prison. Justice was served. Ramos leaned back. Unofficially, I want to understand my anonymous partner better. And if this hypothetical partner existed? Damon asked. Nothing, Ramos assured him. The methods may have been questionable, but the outcome was just. More than that, it was necessary. Rhodes would have escaped conventional law enforcement. Damon considered this. This hypothetical partner, you believe they're still active? I believe someone with their skills and moral compass wouldn't simply stop after one case, especially when others like Rhodes are still out there, Ramos continued. Damon remained silent, neither confirming nor denying the suggestion. Ramos went on, 3 months ago, Judge William Harrove in Boston was exposed for taking bribes. 2 months ago, District Attorney Preston Cowell in Baltimore was linked to witness tampering. Last month, Police Commissioner Frank Daniels in Washington, D.C., was implicated in evidence suppression. He paused meaningfully. All cases built on evidence that appeared through unusual channels. Sounds like justice is being served, Damon observed neutrally. It is, Ramos agreed, in ways the system itself sometimes fails to achieve. Damon studied the FBI agent carefully. Why tell me this? Because I want you to know something, Ramos said quietly. Some of us inside the system recognize its limitations. We understand that justice sometimes requires unconventional approaches. Are you proposing cooperation, Agent Ramos? I'm acknowledging a reality, Ramos clarified, and perhaps suggesting that if this hypothetical partner ever needed assistance, information, access, protection, there are those within the Bureau who might provide it discreetly. Damon absorbed this surprising offer. Hypothetically speaking, that could be valuable. Hypothetically, Ramos agreed, standing to leave. Thank you for the coffee, Mr. Spencer. Your restaurants are doing well. Thank you. I'm particularly proud of our newest location. Yes, Ramos nodded, the one adjacent to the federal courthouse. Strategic position. After Ramos departed, Damon remained at the table, contemplating their conversation. The agent had essentially offered a tacit alliance, acknowledging Damon's extrajudicial activities while suggesting limited support. It was unexpected but potentially useful. Damon had indeed continued his work after the Rhodes case, identifying and exposing corrupt officials who believed themselves untouchable. Each operation was meticulously planned, evidence gathered through methods that wouldn't withstand legal scrutiny, but could trigger legitimate investigations once appropriately laundered. His phone buzzed with a message from Tessa. Boston package delivered. Response positive. Another corrupt judge exposed. Another small victory for justice. Damon had found purpose in this work, not revenge or power, but the restoration of balance. Using the skills that had once made him valuable to the military, he now served justice in ways the system itself couldn't. As he contemplated his next move, Miguel approached the table. Boss, there's someone here to see you. Says it's important. A woman. Damon followed Miguel's lead and saw a woman he didn't recognize standing by the bar. Mid-30s, professionally dressed, with a cautious demeanor. Mr. Spencer, she said as he approached. My name is Camille Weston. I'm a prosecutor in the Harrisburg District Attorney's Office. Damon gestured toward a private booth. How can I help you, Miss Weston? Once seated, Camille spoke in hushed tones. This is unorthodox, but I was advised to contact you by a mutual acquaintance. Agent Ramos suggested you might understand my situation. Damon maintained a neutral expression, which is, I'm working a case against Superior Court Judge Richard Garrison. Racketeering, judicial misconduct, possibly worse. Camille's hands tightened around her water glass. The evidence keeps disappearing. Witnesses recant. Nothing sticks. That must be frustrating, Damon observed. It's more than frustrating, Camille replied, her professional veneer cracking. Garrison has been selling justice to the highest bidder for decades. Children have been returned to abusive parents who could afford his consultation fees. Violent criminals walk free if they have the right connections. And conventional methods have failed completely. Internal affairs, judicial review, even federal oversight, all blocked or diverted. Camille leaned forward. 2 weeks ago, my key witness was found dead in his apartment in apparent suicide, according to the police report. The man had just bought a vacation home and was planning his daughter's wedding. Damon nodded, understanding the implication. Why come to me? I'm not in law enforcement. Agent Ramos said. You, Camille, she hesitated, carefully selecting her words, understand how to level the playing field when the system is compromised. Did he? Damon's expression remained neutral. Agent Ramos has an interesting perspective on my capabilities, Camille said quietly. Please. I've spent 5 years building cases against Garrison, 5 years watching him evade any consequences. I'm out of options. Damon considered her request. This wasn't a personal vendetta like the Rhodes case. This was a prosecutor asking for help after legitimate channels had failed. "Tell me about Garrison," he said, finally. "Everything you know." For the next hour, Camille detailed Judge Garrison's corruption, the suspicious rulings, unexplained wealth, ties to organized crime, and the countless lives ruined in his wake. "I have files," she added, sliding a flash drive across the table. "Everything I've gathered officially and unofficially. It's not enough for court, but it might be enough to start with." Damon pocketed the drive. "I'll look into it, Miss Weston. That's all I can promise." Relief washed over Camille's face. "Thank you. Truly." After she left, Damon reached out to Kyle. "We have a new project. Harrisburg. Judge Richard Garrison." "Another corrupt judge?" Kyle asked. "You're developing a specialty." "This one's different," Damon explained. "We're working with someone inside the system, Camille Weston, a prosecutor. Risky, but she's desperate. She's out of options. Can she be trusted?" "I'll verify everything before we proceed," Damon assured him. "But if our information checks out, Garrison goes down like Rhodes did." That night, Damon reviewed Camille's files in his secure office beneath Spencer's grill. This space, unknown even to most of his staff, was equipped with advanced technology and communication systems that would seem out of place in a restaurant. The evidence against Garrison was compelling, but circumstantial, suspicious financial transactions, a pattern of favorable rulings for certain attorneys, unexplained dismissals of strong cases, nothing that would withstand Garrison's connections and influence. Damon initiated his standard protocols: background checks on Camille Weston to confirm her legitimacy, preliminary surveillance on Garrison to establish patterns, and financial investigations to identify vulnerabilities. By morning, he had confirmation that Camille was legitimate, a dedicated prosecutor with an impeccable record. Garrison, on the other hand, exhibited all the classic signs of corruption, including multiple properties purchased through shell companies and regular meetings with known criminal associates. Damon assembled his team: Kyle for tactical support, Tessa for legal analysis, and Marvin for technical expertise. They gathered in the secure room to plan their approach. "Garrison is more cautious than Rhodes was," Tessa noted, reviewing the files. "No obvious illegal activities. He's learned from others' mistakes." "Everyone leaves traces," Damon countered. "We just need to find them." Marvin examined Garrison's financial records. His hidden accounts are sophisticated, multiple layers of shells and trusts. He's using professional money managers. "Focus on the cases Camille highlighted," Damon instructed. "Cross-reference parties who benefited from Garrison's rulings with financial flows to his suspected accounts." The investigation proceeded methodically over the following weeks. While maintaining his normal routine running Spencer's Grill, Damon directed operations against Garrison. The team established surveillance at key locations, infiltrated Garrison's digital communications, and gradually built a comprehensive picture of his corruption network. The breakthrough came unexpectedly. While reviewing court transcripts from one of Garrison's controversial rulings, Tessa discovered a pattern of interactions with a court reporter named Elaine Matthews. "She's present for all his sensitive cases," Tessa explained. "Always the same reporter, even when it requires schedule adjustments." Further investigation revealed that Matthews had purchased a vacation home in the Bahamas, despite her modest salary. Her phone records showed regular calls to Garrison outside court hours. "She's his insurance policy," Damon realized. Court reporters control the official record, and if testimony needed to be altered, she could make it happen. Tessa added, "Subtle changes that make his preferred outcomes appear legitimate." Damon formulated a plan, shifting the focus to Matthews rather than Garrison directly. Kyle set up surveillance on the court reporter, documenting her meetings with Garrison outside of professional contexts. Marvin accessed her financial records and found payments from the same shell companies linked to Garrison. Camille Weston provided crucial inside information: court schedules, case details, and building access, while maintaining plausible deniability about Damon's methods. 3 months into the operation, they had gathered comprehensive evidence of Garrison's corruption network, including recorded conversations between the judge and Matthews discussing altered transcripts. "We're ready," Damon announced during a team meeting. "Time to execute." Unlike the Rhodes case, where Damon had been personally involved and publicly visible, the Garrison operation remained entirely covert. Evidence was anonymously delivered to multiple authorities simultaneously: the Pennsylvania Judicial Conduct Board, the FBI, and 3 trusted journalists. The evidence was structured to trigger official investigations that would independently uncover additional proof, creating a legitimate path to prosecution that couldn't be traced back to Damon or his team. 2 weeks later, the headline appeared: "Superior Court Judge under Federal Investigation for Corruption and Evidence Tampering." Garrison was suspended pending investigation. Matthews, confronted with evidence of her involvement, agreed to cooperate in exchange for leniency. Additional participants in the corruption scheme began turning on each other, hastening the case's collapse. Damon watched the news coverage with satisfaction, noting that his name appeared nowhere. Camille Weston was quoted extensively as the prosecutor who had persistently pursued justice despite institutional obstacles. Agent Ramos called that evening. "Impressive work in Harrisburg. Clean, untraceable." "I have no idea what you're talking about," Damon replied mildly. "Of course not," Ramos acknowledged. "Hypothetically speaking, though, well done." "Hypothetically," Damon agreed. Justice was served, indeed. And Camille Weston is receiving the well-deserved recognition for her persistence. Damon smiled slightly. As it should be. She's the one working within the system, while others work adjacent to it. An effective partnership model, Ramos observed. After the call, Damon reflected on his evolving role. What had started as personal vengeance against the Rhodes had transformed into something more systematic, a method for addressing corrupt justice when conventional approaches failed. He wasn't naive about the moral complexities. His methods operated outside legal boundaries, surveillance without warrants, accessing protected information, pressuring witnesses. Yet the alternatives, allowing corrupt officials to continue destroying lives with impunity, seemed far worse. Damon had found his true purpose, not in running restaurants. Although he maintained that public identity meticulously, but in restoring balance to a system that sometimes protected the powerful at the expense of justice. It wasn't about revenge anymore. It was about restoration. 3 years after Nolan Rhodes' conviction, Damon Spencer had established a new normal. Spencer's Grill had expanded to 5 locations across Pennsylvania, building a reputation for exceptional food and service. Damon himself had become a respected figure in Philadelphia's business community, supporting charities, mentoring young entrepreneurs, and occasionally speaking at culinary schools. This public persona ran in perfect parallel with his other work, the methodical identification and exposure of corruption within the justice system. Damon had built a network that now included Camille Weston, Agent Ramos, and others who shared his commitment to accountability. Together, they had brought down 17 corrupt officials across the Northeast. Each case followed a similar pattern. Identify the systemic failures that allowed corruption to thrive, gather evidence through methods unavailable to conventional law enforcement, deliver that evidence through channels that would establish legitimate investigative paths, then step back as official processes took over. Damon maintained strict operational security. His team, Kyle, Tessa, Marvin, and others recruited for specific skills, operated with military precision and discipline. No evidence led back to them, and no patterns emerged that might attract unwanted attention. That was until Senator Mitchell Carlson arrived in Philadelphia. Carlson, a rising political star with presidential ambitions, had started his career as a protege of Nolan Rhodes before distancing himself once Rhodes' crimes were exposed. Now, 3 years later, he was back in Philadelphia for a fundraising dinner at the Bellinis. Damon watched the coverage from his office above the original Spencer's Grill. Carlson's speech emphasized justice reform, ironic, given his past connections to Rhodes and others Damon had helped expose. Antonio Dominguez called shortly after the broadcast. "Did you see Carlson in my restaurant? The hypocrisy is breathtaking." "I saw," Damon confirmed. "How did he seem?" "Confident. Entitled. Surrounded by the same type of people who used to accompany Rhodes." Antonio paused. "Damon, he asked about you." Damon tensed slightly. "What did he want to know?" "How you were doing. Whether you still came to Bellini's." Casual questions, but his interest seemed significant. "Interesting," Damon mused. "Keep me informed if he returns." After disconnecting, Damon initiated his standard security protocols, checking for surveillance, reviewing recent communications for compromise, and assessing potential vulnerabilities. Tessa arrived an hour later, concern evident on her face. "We have a situation. Carlson's been making inquiries about you through various channels, official and unofficial." "What kind of inquiries?" "Background checks. Beyond the standard political vetting. Military records. Financial investigations. He's even had people interviewing your former neighbors from when you were married to Valerie." Damon considered this development. "He suspects something." "More than suspects," Tessa corrected. "According to my sources, Carlson has a theory that you were behind Rhodes' downfall, that you've been systematically targeting his former associates and allies." "Which is true," Damon acknowledged. "But he shouldn't have enough information to make that connection." Tessa looked troubled. "Someone's been talking." Damon nodded thoughtfully. "Or Carlson is smarter than we've given him credit for. He was Rhodes' protege for years. He would have observed Rhodes' methods, connections, vulnerabilities. What's our move?" "For now, we watch and wait. Increase surveillance on Carlson. Review all our past operations for potential leaks or patterns." Damon maintained his normal schedule in the days that followed, though with heightened awareness of his surroundings. Nothing in his public behavior changed, but privately, he accelerated contingency planning in case Carlson posed a genuine threat. A week later, the senator made a direct approach. Damon was closing Spencer's grill when a sleek black car pulled up outside. Senator Mitchell Carlson emerged alone, a calculated move, showing confidence. "Mr. Spencer?" Carlson greeted him with a practiced politician's smile. "I was hoping we might speak privately." Damon maintained a neutral expression. "Senator Carlson, this is unexpected." "Is it?" Carlson's smile remained fixed. "I've been wanting to meet you properly for some time." Damon considered his options briefly before gesturing toward the door. "Please, come in. Can I offer you something to drink?" "Scotch, if you have it," Carlson replied, following Damon into the dimly lit restaurant. Damon led him to the bar, pouring 2 glasses of single malt. The 2 men studied each other in silence for a moment, sizing each other up, each assessing the other's potential threat. Carlson spoke first. "You've built quite a success story here, 5 restaurants in 3 years. Impressive recovery after what the roads put you through," Damon responded simply. "Hard work and persistence pay off." "Indeed, they do." Carlson took a sip of his scotch. "You know, Nolan Rhodes was a mentor to me once. Taught me a great deal about how power really functions in our system." "I imagine he did," Damon replied neutrally. Carlson's smile tightened slightly. "He also taught me to recognize patterns, to identify threats that others might miss. An important skill in politics," Damon observed. "In many fields," Carlson countered. "For instance, I've noticed an interesting pattern over the past 3 years. People connected to Nolan Rhodes, judges, prosecutors, police officials he worked with, have been systematically exposed and removed from office." Damon kept his expression neutral. "Justice catching up with corruption? That seems like positive progress." "It does," Carlson agreed. "Except for the unusual consistency in how these cases unfold. Evidence appears through anonymous sources. Digital trails that shouldn't exist are suddenly discovered, and witnesses find courage at precisely the right moments." "The justice system working as it should?" Damon suggested. Carlson laughed softly. "We both know the system doesn't work that efficiently on its own. Someone has been helping it along." Damon set down his glass. "Why are you telling me this, Senator?" "Because I believe that someone is you, Mr. Spencer." Carlson's smile disappeared, his expression now focused and intense. "I believe you orchestrated Nolan Rhodes' downfall, then continued systematically dismantling his network of allies and associates." "That's quite a theory," Damon replied evenly. "A restorer taking down corrupt officials across multiple states? Sounds more like a television plot than reality." "A restorer with 8 years of special operations experience, documented expertise in intelligence gathering and psychological warfare." Carlson leaned forward. "With a proven motive for vengeance against Nolan Rhodes and everyone connected to him." Damon kept his composure. "Even if your theory were true, why approach me directly? Surely that would be unwise." "Because I'm not here to threaten you, Mr. Spencer," Carlson's voice lowered. "I'm here to hire you." Damon couldn't completely hide his surprise. "Excuse me? Your methods, hypothetically speaking, are exactly what I need," Carlson explained. "I'm pursuing anti-corruption legislation that powerful people want to block. People with the same kind of influence and immunity that Rhodes once enjoyed." "And you want what exactly?" "Evidence," Carlson said simply. "Evidence that would expose their corruption and eliminate their opposition to my bill. Evidence that my position prevents me from gathering through conventional means." Damon studied the senator carefully, looking for any sign of deception. "Why should I believe you? You were Rhodes' protege." "I was," Carlson acknowledged, "until I discovered what he really was. Rhodes introduced me to people I now know were criminal associates. He tried to draw me into his corruption network, gradually testing my willingness to compromise." "And you refused?" Damon asked skeptically. "I played along while quietly documenting everything," Carlson corrected. "I was preparing to take evidence to federal authorities when you accelerated the timeline by exposing Rhodes yourself." Damon neither confirmed nor denied the assertion. "Let's say I believe you. What exactly are you proposing?" Damon asked. "A partnership of sorts," Carlson explained. "I can provide access to information and protection that would enhance your hypothetical activities. In exchange, you help me expose specific corruption targets related to my legislation." "Risky for both parties," Damon observed. "High risk, high reward," Carlson agreed. "But necessary if we want real change." Damon took a moment to carefully consider the proposal. "I'll need time to think about this." "Of course," Carlson replied, standing to leave. "Take all the time you need, but know that my offer is sincere." After Carlson left, Damon immediately contacted his team, implementing full security protocols and launching a comprehensive investigation into the senator's background, connections, and activities. For the next 2 weeks, Damon's network gathered information on Mitchell Carlson, his voting record, financial affairs, private communications, associations, and personal history. The resulting picture was complex, but consistent. Carlson seemed genuinely committed to pursuing anti-corruption reforms, often challenging powerful interests within his own party. His proposed legislation aimed to establish an independent oversight commission with real enforcement power. It's genuinely threatening to entrenched corruption networks and the opposition, Tessa reported during a secure meeting. Significant? Damon asked. 3 senators and 7 representatives are actively working to kill the bill. All have suspicious financial patterns consistent with bribery, Cal confirmed. Marvin provided additional digital evidence. Carlson's private communications aligned with his public positions, and he'd been working on the anti-corruption initiative for years even before Rhodes' downfall. Damon processed the information thoughtfully, so his approach to me appears legitimate. He wants ammunition against the officials blocking his reforms. It aligns with our objectives. Partnering directly with a sitting senator dramatically increases our risk exposure, Tessa acknowledged. True, Damon agreed. But it also dramatically expands our capabilities and impact. After careful consideration, Damon arranged another meeting with Carlson, this time in a secure room beneath Spencer's grill. The senator seemed impressed by the sophisticated command center hidden beneath the restaurant. Quite an operation for a restaurateur, Carlson observed. Purely hypothetical, Damon reminded him with a slight smile. I've considered your proposal, Senator. Before we discuss it further, I need to be absolutely clear about something. Go ahead. If this is some elaborate trap, or if you're attempting to gather evidence against me or my team, it won't end well for you. Damon's tone was calm but firm, leaving no doubt about the seriousness of his warning. I've taken precautions to ensure that if anything happens to me or my people, everything I know about everyone, including you, becomes public immediately. Carlson nodded soberly. Understood. And I'd expect nothing less. But this isn't a trap, Damon. It's an opportunity for us both to do more good than either could accomplish alone. Damon studied him carefully before making his decision. Very well. Let's discuss terms. Their alliance began cautiously, with limited information sharing and clearly defined boundaries. Carlson provided intelligence on corruption within the congressional committees opposing his legislation, and Damon's team verified this information independently before acting on it. Their first joint operation targeted Senator William Henderson of Ohio, the most vocal opponent of Carlson's anti-corruption bill. Damon's team uncovered evidence that Henderson had received millions in bribes from companies that would be negatively impacted by the proposed reforms. The evidence was carefully structured to protect both Damon and Carlson and was delivered through channels that couldn't be traced back to either of them. 2 months later, when Henderson was indicted, Carlson's legislation gained crucial momentum. Similar operations followed against other corrupt officials blocking the reforms. Each success strengthened the trust between Damon and Carlson, gradually expanding the scope of their cooperation. 1 year into their partnership, Carlson's anti-corruption bill passed through Congress and was signed into law, establishing an independent commission with real authority to investigate officials, regardless of their political connections. Damon watched the signing ceremony on television, feeling a rare sense of systemic achievement, something more profound than just personal justice. His vendetta against the Rhodes had transformed into something far more significant: structural reform that would prevent others from exploiting their power with impunity. That evening, Carlson visited Spencer's Grill to privately celebrate with Damon and his core team. We actually did it, Carlson said, raising his glass. Real reform, with real teeth. Something Nolan Rhodes and his kind would have thought impossible, Damon acknowledged. It's a start, Damon responded. The commission will face resistance, attempts to undermine its authority. That's why our work continues. Carlson agreed. The law provides the tools, but people still need to use them effectively. Damon nodded thoughtfully. My team has compiled files on 37 additional officials with corruption patterns similar to those we've already exposed: judges, prosecutors, legislators across 12 states. Ambitious, Carlson observed. And necessary, Damon added. Cal raised his glass. To justice, without shortcuts or mercy, he said, and to the man who reminded us all that some predators become prey. Damon accepted the toast with a slight nod, but his thoughts were already turning to the work ahead. The celebration was well-earned, but brief. There would always be more corrupt officials who thought themselves untouchable, more systems failing those they were meant to protect. After the others left, Carlson lingered, studying Damon with newfound respect. You know, when I first approached you, I thought I understood what drove you, Carlson admitted. Revenge against the Rhodes. But it's more than that, isn't it? Damon considered the question. It started as revenge, he acknowledged. but it became something else. A recognition that power without accountability corrupts absolutely. And you've appointed yourself as that accountability, Carlson observed. Someone has to be, Damon replied simply. The system tries, but it has limitations, legal constraints, political pressures, institutional loyalties. Carlson nodded thoughtfully. A necessary shadow to balance the light. Just be careful you don't become what you're fighting against. That's why I have people I trust, Damon explained. Tessa, Kyle, Marvin, they keep me grounded. They'd stop me if I crossed certain lines. Good, Carlson said, rising to leave. Because I've seen what happens when men think they're above all constraints. It never ends well. 2 weeks later, Damon received an unexpected request, a visit from Valerie. 5 years into her 10-year sentence, she had maintained complete silence until now. Damon considered ignoring the request. Valerie had betrayed him entirely, participated in criminal activities that had cost lives, and shown no remorse until her own freedom was at stake. She deserved nothing from him. Yet curiosity won out. What could she possibly want after all this time? The Federal Women's Correctional Facility was a 3-hour drive from Philadelphia. Damon arrived on time, surrendered his personal items, and followed a guard through security checkpoints to the visitation area. Valerie was already seated at a small table. Prison had changed her physically. She was thinner, her once perfect hair now simply functional, and her designer clothes replaced by a standard-issue uniform. But the most striking change was in her eyes, which had lost their entitlement and confidence. Damon, she said, as he sat across from her. Thank you for coming, Valerie said. Damon remained silent, his gaze steady, waiting for her to explain the purpose of the meeting. Valerie fidgeted under his unwavering attention. I've had a lot of time to think in here, she began, her voice tentative. About what I did. About who I was. Damon gave her a prompt, urging her to continue as she fell silent. I wanted to apologize, she said, her voice small. Not because it changes anything, but because it needs to be said. I was wrong about everything, the way I treated you, the things I did with my father and Blake. Damon studied her carefully, searching for any sign of manipulation behind her words. Why now? He asked, his voice cold. 5 years of silence. And now suddenly you want absolution? Not absolution, she corrected quickly. I know better than to expect that from you. She hesitated. I needed you to know that I understand now. What my family was. What I became part of. You always understood, Damon countered flatly. You made your choices consciously. You brought food to a man your father was torturing. You helped cover up his murder. Valerie flinched, acknowledging the truth of his words. Yes, I did those things. I can't change that history. Then what do you want from me? Damon asked. She met his eyes directly. Information about my mother. No one will tell me anything in here, but I've heard rumors that she left the country. Changed her name. Damon nodded slightly. Gloria relocated to New Zealand after your father's conviction. She legally changed her name and has no contact with anyone from her past life. Is she okay? Valerie asked, her voice hesitant. She's rebuilt her life, Damon replied. She works with domestic violence victims now. A form of atonement, I suppose. Valerie absorbed the information, a mix of emotions flickering across her face. Any others? Blake? Pierce. Blake is serving his sentence in maximum security after attempting to bribe guards at his previous facility, Damon replied. Your brother, Pierce, was released last year after completing his reduced sentence. He works at a warehouse in Oregon under his mother's maiden name. You keep track of all of them, Valerie observed. I keep track of potential threats, Damon corrected. Valerie nodded in understanding. And that's how you see me too. A potential threat to be monitored. Are you suggesting you're something else? Damon asked. No, she admitted. I forfeited any other role in your life years ago. She hesitated, then added, there's one more thing I wanted to tell you. I'm eligible for parole next year. If granted, I'll be relocating to California. You'll never have to see me again. Damon studied her with clinical detachment. Is that supposed to reassure me? It's just information, Valerie replied. I thought you might want to know. I already knew, Damon said. I know everything about your case, Valerie. Your behavior reports. Your therapy sessions. Your parole prospects. Valerie looked momentarily startled, then resigned. Of course you do. You've always been 3 steps ahead. She hesitated again, then asked, Are you going to oppose my parole? Damon considered the question. 5 years earlier, he would have done everything in his power to ensure Valerie remained in prison for the full sentence. But now, with his focus on broader systemic corruption, she seemed almost irrelevant, more of a footnote than a continuing threat. No, he decided. Your actions will determine your fate. If the parole board believes you've reformed, that's their judgment to make. Relief washed across Valerie's face. Thank you. Don't thank me, Damon replied, rising to leave. I'm not doing it for you. The resources needed to block your parole are better spent targeting more significant objectives. Damon said. Valerie looked up at him, her expression a blend of resignation and understanding. You never forgave me, did you? Not even a little? Damon paused, genuinely reflecting on her question. Forgiveness requires trust and redemption, Valerie. I don't trust you, and I never will. Fair enough, she accepted. For what it's worth, I hope you find peace. I'm not looking for peace, he replied. I found purpose. That's enough. As Damon left the prison, he felt no closure or catharsis from the encounter. Instead, it was a clinical confirmation that Valerie Rhodes Spencer no longer had any emotional hold over him. She was just another corrupt individual who had faced the consequences of her actions. His phone buzzed with a message from Tessa. New information on Judge Lawrence Baxter, Third Circuit. Pattern of dismissed cases matching financial deposits. Preliminary evidence ready for review. Damon smiled slightly. The work continued. 6 months later, Damon stood on the balcony of his penthouse apartment overlooking Philadelphia, the city lights glittering below. They symbolized the complex web of power, corruption, and the occasional justice that defined urban life. Spencer's Grill had expanded to 7 locations across 3 states, and his reputation as a successful restaurateur and businessman was solidified, providing the perfect cover for his other endeavors. His network had grown, too. Beyond his core team, Damon had connections within the FBI, the judicial system, the financial sector, and the political sphere. People like Agent Ramos, Camille Weston, and Senator Carlson, who recognized that sometimes justice required working beyond conventional limits. These allies brought him cases where corruption seemed poised to prevail over accountability. Damon evaluated each one carefully, accepting only those where the evidence was undeniable and traditional remedies had failed. His methods remained meticulous, leaving no trace that could threaten his operation. The powerful individuals exposed through his efforts never saw the shadowy hand guiding their downfall, only the legitimate investigations and judicial processes that ultimately held them accountable. Damon's secure phone buzzed with an encrypted message from Senator Carlson. New development. Supreme Court Justice Layton implicated in bribery scheme. Evidence compromised by federal agents. Requires immediate intervention. A Supreme Court justice. The highest level target they had ever considered. The risks would be enormous. The security surrounding such a figure would be nearly impenetrable. The consequences of failure catastrophic. Damon smiled slightly as he typed his response. Send everything you have. We begin tonight. The man who had once been a restaurateur trying to please his wife's family had transformed into something entirely different. An architect of justice operating in the shadows between legal constraints and moral imperatives. He was not a vigilante seeking personal vengeance, but a methodical force ensuring that no one, regardless of power or position, remained beyond accountability. Damon Spencer had found his true calling. The betrayal meant to destroy him had, instead, transformed him, revealing his capacity to balance the scales that institutional justice sometimes couldn't reach. As he turned back to his apartment, the lights of Philadelphia glittering below, Damon reflected on the journey that had brought him here. The Rhodes had miscalculated, fatally, when they invited him into their world, believing him weak and malleable. They had never understood that some men cannot be broken, they can only be transformed. They had intended to make him a victim. Instead, they had created their reckoning. Dear listeners, please share your thoughts in the comments section below and don't forget to like, share, and subscribe.